Well, good morning. Welcome to School Days, Help for Moms and Dads of School-Aged Kids. I'm Danita Bailey.
And I'm David Bailey.
Today we're discussing early childhood literacy and language development. So, moms and dads of kids that aren't in kindergarten yet, you're going to want to stick around for this. Research shows that the human brain grows the most from birth to age 5, and that exposure to language and books during this time is crucial for academic success later on in life. So, what do you remember were your earliest memories of being read to and books and things like that, Dave? So this is radio. You have to use words. You can't just stare at me.
No, that's my answer.
No, I understood, but they can't see that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, listening audience who can't see me. Yes, nothing.
Nothing. You don't remember any reading prior to school, like books or.
I remember a few laying around, but it wasn't hey, son, come sit on my lap and let's read stories together.
Right. I have early memories of my dad reading to me. I can't remember my mom, not that she didn't, but I can remember sitting in my dad's lap and him reading books to me. And I can also remember just those big, thick books, like the thick pages, and they're
Right.
really like tall books. I
Yeah.
can remember those in our house.
Yeah.
Those are my earliest memories.
Yeah, I didn't really get interested in reading until middle school. I would go to the library, and I remember a couple of books I saw my brother reading before, and then I was interested in what he read, so I found those at the library and started reading those books.
Mm-hmm.
It was by Lloyd Alexander. I'll never forget. The Book of Three, Turan Wanderer, and The High King. It was a trilogy,
Oh.
and that kind of got me hooked. And then from there, I started, taking more of an interest in reading when I wasn't doing school stuff.
But not till middle school.
Yeah.
My mom tells me that I would inhale books, like the what is it called, the book fair? Yeah. I was always really, really excited, like our kids are. I was
Yeah.
really, really excited that when the book fair came around, and I would read a lot.
Oh,
And now that's
okay.
changed a little since I've become an adult.
Yeah.
But and that's weird because now I'm not like that anymore. I don't know what. Actually, I do know what happened. Television happened. I got interested in television and put the books down.
All right. Well, I mean, and that's, one of your fortes is television and editing and stuff like that. So you kind of shifted.
Well, that's why.
Yeah.
Because I watched TV
Yeah.
so much when I was little.
Oh, we got to get you back on some audiobooks or something.
Yeah, I tried an audiobook that didn't work out so well for me. I'm still
Podcasting.
trying to get through. Start with why.
Oh,
This is like month 4.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be taking me this long.
Yeah. So.
But you used to read a lot to our kids.
Yeah.
I can remember with our first child.
Yeah, and I read a lot to them, and then I didn't. I don't know
I mean,
when
you started with our oldest.
Yeah, I
and
started with
then-
our oldest DJ, and we read a lot, read stories at night, and then Jonathan, he kind of came on board, and then I don't know what happened.
We suddenly had 3 kids. And
Yeah.
it felt like we didn't have
And
as
then I
much
was tired
time.
all the time, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right. I remember sometimes they would wake me up.
First kid always gets the best
Yeah,
stuff.
kind of like in The Incredibles, when it was reading, and he read, and Jack slapped him upside the head to wake him up because he was dozing off. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
can remember you
that's
doing
what it
that.
was like. Yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
all right.
Yeah, we got to do better. And I think that, today our guest is going to help us to get
Yes.
some tools. And also what I'm most excited about is just getting a better understanding of how important literacy is so early on. You hear it a lot, and when you go to the doctor, the doctor says, are you reading to your children?
Right.
And you hear it everywhere. But just in researching for this program, for this show, my eyes have been even more open to just how crucial it really, really is.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. But before we go any further, let me just say it does take a village. If you hear a great parenting tip or nugget of advice, share it with your parent friends. Facebook it, Instagram it, tweet it, link it in, and add the hashtag School Days Show and hashtag I am school dazed. And also, we really do want you to be a part of the show. So if you have questions or comments, give us a call at 214-431-5062. So, Dave, do you want to introduce who we've got with us today?
Yes, let me get going. I know she's chomping at the bit. She's like, you better come on. She's loaded and ready to go. So let me do the introduction here, and then we're gonna get right to it. All right. So Dr. Ann Van Kleeck is a professor and Callier research scholar at the Callier Center for Communication Disorders in the School of Behavioral and Brain Science at the University of Texas at Dallas. Over the past 40 years, she has taught courses and conducted research on preschoolers' language development. She has been particularly interested in the kinds of preschool and oral language skills that provide critically important foundations for preschoolers' later literacy achievement and academic success. Dr. Van Kleeck has published 5 books and has over 75 additional publications. She has also given over 250 presentations about her work, both nationally and internationally. Her research has won numerous national and international awards. This past fall, Dr. Van Kleeck received the highest award given in her field to honor her career-long groundbreaking research on preschoolers' language, foundations for later academic success, and literacy development. So that's like you got like the Oscars of your field. That's awesome.
Is that a true
you.
statement? It's kind of the Oscars of your field.
It felt like it the night they had the awards ceremony. It was pretty amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So
Yeah, thank you.
we are so glad you're here to talk with us today and to share your expertise to our family and our our family of listeners.
Our school days family.
Yes.
I like
yes,
that.
Yes. Hey fam,
great.
we're gonna go in today. So let's go.
Well, I
Well-
wanted to start real quick. You before we went on the air, you were talking a little bit about your background, and we really found it fascinating. So talk about a little bit kind of where you came from, and I know we just read your bio, but that wasn't in your bio.
Sure. Yeah. I'm from a family of 6 children, so my mom didn't have much time to read to us. But when I was still 2, not yet 3, my older sister Karen was in school. She was 3.5 years older than me, and she was starting to learn how to read. And she would come home and play school with me, and she taught me how to read before I was 3 years of age. She
Wow.
was a pretty darn strict teacher, but I learned how to read, and I just think that helped me so much when I got to school and already had that skill. So I think that's probably an unusual story. So,
Right.
Karen, thank you.
Well, that really started you on quite a journey. So we have so many questions for you. So let's just jump right in. So what language milestones should children be hitting before the age of 5?
So in terms of their speech, a stranger should be able to understand everything that a 5-year-old says, or even a 4-year-old says, even if not all the speech sounds are produced 100% correctly. In terms of language, 5-year-olds should be able to express their thoughts and feelings. They should be able to ask when, where, why kinds of questions. They should be able to engage in a back and forth flow of conversation. They should be able to tell a coherent story, be able to recall things that have happened in the past in a clear and understandable manner, and regularly use their language to reason about the world and to learn about the world.
Yeah.
And we also really hope that they use their language to learn more about language and more about the world, so that they're asking questions about what things are and how they work and where they came from, and also what does this word mean. And the more they do of that, the better off they'll be.
And so, just our little testimony of what happened with our son. By the time he was age 2, was it? Yeah, by the time he was age 2, he wasn't even repeating words. So, that we were looking at his older brother as kind of an example of maybe what we should be expecting,
Sure.
and also other people's kids. And so by the time he was age 2, he wasn't even repeating words. We started to get concerned, and we
Yeah.
started to try to get him some help. So that's definitely a red flag. That was a red flag for us. So what are some symptoms kind of like that of language disorders?
So language is what allows us to understand what's said and express our thoughts and feelings effectively. And of course, from birth to 5 years, there's a tremendous amount of language growth. But about 7 to 10% of kids just have a lot of difficulty learning language. It sounds like your son was one of them.
Yeah.
And when children's weaker language skills are confirmed, they'll be tested by a speech language pathologist. And if he or she finds out that they're clearly outside of the normal range for their age, then we call that a developmental language disorder.
So how do you know that? Well, so I'm just thinking, maybe for some parents that they might not have access to a speech pathologist. Pathologist. What kind of things would be red flags? Like, Jonathan not repeating words by the time he was 2.
Sure. So children, of course, develop language at different rates. Just like they do everything. But when a parent notices that a child seems to have noticeably less language or communication than most of the other children their age, like you compared your child to a previous child, or if you start to see that the child seems frustrated, that they can't express themselves, then it's definitely time to go and have them evaluated by a professional. But we can even get signs a lot earlier than that, even before children can talk, like you were mentioning your son. There can be signs of a problem. So a typically developing 10 to 12-month-old can communicate pretty well using gestures and vocalizations, even though they don't have language yet. They'll also be making lots of sounds and babbling. They'll show an interest in sharing experiences and communicating non-verbally at that point with others. They probably will understand a few words. And if these kinds of things aren't happening by 18 months, then it's definitely time to get the child's language skills evaluated.
Okay. So what would be some of the causes of a developmental disorder? We're using words that are too big for me today.
I know. It's a mouthful. Developmental language disorder. Right. If you can say it, you don't have one. So about 7 to 10% of kids have a developmental language disorder, even though they have good hearing, good cognitive skills, good social skills, and an adequately stimulating environment. The language disorder is their primary difficulty, so we'll call that a primary developmental language disorder. Talk about a really big mouthful. So in other cases, the child has another developmental disability that causes the language disorder. So, for example, they may have a severe or profound hearing loss. Right. They may have intellectual disability. So that'll cause them to have language skills that are poorer than other children their chronological age. Children on the autism spectrum very frequently have developmental language disorders. And we call these disorders secondary language disorders because the primary problem is the hearing loss or the cognitive impairment or being on the autism spectrum, and the language problem is secondary to that. And sometimes we'll see several risk factors increasing the probability, even if it's not something more dramatic like an intellectual disability or severe hearing loss or whatever. So there can be risk factors, and a lot of times any one of these risk factors alone wouldn't make the child more susceptible to having a language disorder, but as they start to pile up, the probability the child would have a language disorder increases. So here we have things like prematurity and low birth weight, having infections in utero or around the time of birth, having a mom who had substance abuse problems during her pregnancy, having a parent who had difficulty learning language or learning to read, or having a mom who didn't graduate from high school. So
I'm sorry. I'm interested. You said mom. Why the emphasis on mom
oh,
versus
that's such a
dad?
good question. I usually qualify that because that's where the research is mostly focused.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Like,
so
what,
yeah.
what about the dad? What
Yeah,
about-
it's certainly dad, and the research is focused there mostly. We have an easier time getting moms, to participate
Uh-huh.
in research
Yeah.
subjects, and still, even though things are changing, moms are spending more
More
time
time,
with their
yeah.
children
Right.
than dads typically are. So, mom will have a little bit more impact, but it doesn't mean what dad does isn't important
Right.
at all. So, in a lot of cases, we just really don't know why a child has a language disorder. We don't see the risk factors. We don't see these primary disabilities. But there's certainly a lot of research going on trying to figure that out.
Right, and in our case, it turned out that Jonathan was on the spectrum,
Uh-huh.
but he's high functioning. So at the time, he was kind of too young to be diagnosed with that.
Sure.
Because he didn't have kind of some of the telltale things like maybe hitting his head or some of the other things
Right.
that would scream autism. So he didn't get diagnosed until he was 8, right?
Wow.
7 or 8. Was
yeah.
it 7? Yeah, but he
And then
definitely
you
had
went,
the
exactly. Now
exactly.
it all makes
Right.
sense.
Absolutely.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and then with it, there was the diagnosis of the severe speech impairment prior to us having the diagnosis of him being on the autism spectrum. Remember that?
Yeah.
His prior school. So that was more like the primary push, but that really wasn't it. And so now he's talking pretty well now. So this is interesting. The
Yeah.
research is it's like, oh, that makes perfect
And we
sense.
tested his hearing, and his hearing was perfect. And then there was just kind of no explanation. And then eventually we got him some help. We got with ECI, early childhood intervention, and got him some help. And then all of a sudden his issue was not repeating, and then he was unintelligible. Nobody and he was
right.
upset with us, the frustration that you were talking
Right,
about,
right, sure.
because he's saying things,
But you didn't know what they were.
He's
Yeah.
like, dummy, I'm trying to talk to you guys. Why don't you understand me? And he was smart. They tested him. He was smart. It wasn't an intellectual thing. It's just nobody could understand what he was saying.
Yeah,
So it was,
yeah.
I'm so glad that we were able to get him the help.
Yeah. So this just has me thinking. So just for parents from just various backgrounds, well, maybe we'll get to that later as far as kind of where to go to get resources.
Yeah, we
and
will.
help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll hold off on that.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a correlation between nutrition and language development?
So when we get into pretty serious nutritional issues like malnutrition, that can certainly impair cognitive development, and that in turn will impair language development. On the other hand, breastfeeding seems to be beneficial for cognitive development, so it can be beneficial for language development. Eating breakfast is beneficial for cognition learning, language learning. We also know that obesity can have a negative impact, certainly on what we call child's executive function
Right.
abilities.
Yeah.
That's the child's ability to control their own attention and their own behavior. And having poor skills in this realm can also really wreak havoc on the child being successful academically. There are ways in which nutrition can have an impact.
Yeah. Well, kind of an aside here. I remember schools I had taught at, and I looked at the food they were feeding the kids. I'm like, this is garbage.
Sure, yeah.
It just fatted up, sugared up.
Fed it up.
Was that a word? I just made it a word.
Sure. We know exactly what you
Right.
mean.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
It was clear.
You guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So.
Because I get fatted up when I eat that stuff.
But just garbage. And then I thought about that, and some of the academic issues that I saw with some students, and I'm thinking, well, this can't help,
Right.
heavy foods, and so so kind of if that's this has me thinking. I'm going to jump ahead, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna refrain. Okay. So anyway, that's just an observation. What
Right,
you're saying.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I got something for you later.
Yeah,
though.
and I think with the studies, we don't see impacts that might be more subtle of things about like what you eat.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we'll see the things that are really, really causing a problem like malnutrition or obesity or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Told you we're gonna get a nutritionist on here. I'm telling you, we're gonna get a nutritionist.
I
on.
agree with you.
Yes. Well, now you do.
Okay.
She's like, I don't know. I was like, anyway, yeah.
So, can you also explain the benefit of early detection of disorders and delays? Like, we might see things, and we as parents are busy,
Right, sure.
and if we have more than one kid, which a lot of us do, it sometimes is hard to focus on these types of things when we see a red flag and we're like, oh, maybe that's a problem, but I don't necessarily have
Right.
time. So why is it important that we make sure we catch these things?
Well, there are absolutely huge benefits to early detection. As you started out saying today, children are learning so much right from birth. Their brains are in a tremendous growth period. So we want to take full advantage of this early, very intense learning period as soon as we possibly can to help the child reach his or her full potential, developing their language and all of their other skills. So we absolutely know the earlier, the better.
And how can not staying on top of this and making sure that we get help for them, how can that affect us down the line? Because a lot of our parents not just have younger kids, but they have kids that are in school age.
I didn't quite catch
How
that
can it
question.
affect if we don't
It can
catch these things? And
it can have a lifelong impact. It can harm the child's academic skills. So language is the basis for academic success. Reading is language written down,
Right.
so it's critical for reading. So if we don't do as much as we can as early as we can, if those skills are weak when children are preschoolers, there's a much higher chance they're going to have difficulties later with reading and with their overall academic achievement. And this is particularly true of seems like you shouldn't be worried about academic language skills with preschoolers, but you should. So it's particularly true if they're weak in their academic talk or their academic language skills.
so tell me what academic talk is.
So I think the best way to understand this concept is to think about why language is used in school. It's used to learn about the world, to think, and in school, children also have to be very comfortable talking about what they know, talking about what they're thinking. In a less obvious way, they have to use their language skills in school is to control their own behavior so that they can pay attention. Those executive functions we mentioned earlier. So to help us think about how children will need to use language in school, in my work, I've made a real clear distinction between everyday casual talk and academic talk. If a child has a parent with high education levels, both of those are going on all the time at home all through the preschool years. Casual talk is used to get things done in everyday life, to have relationships with other people. And in school, again, we're using language to learn about the world and engage in thinking. So children can be very good at casual talk in everyday life and still struggle tremendously when they get to school because they don't have this academic language skill. And that's exactly what happens to a lot of children from low-income backgrounds. Most of them actually don't have a communication disorder. A good 90% of them don't have a developmental language disorder, but they very often do have weak academic language skills. So being exposed to a lot of academic talk at home and in preschool helps them get the specific kinds of language skills. The casual skills aren't going to help them much, but the specific kinds of language skills that will really help them with their academic skills and with their reading comprehension. That's kind of the backbone as they go further and further up in the grades to their academic success. And the research shows even by kindergarten, first grade, if children start school behind in these skills, they're very likely to stay behind, and they may even fall further and further behind. So they'll struggle throughout their academic careers because they entered in kindergarten or entered in first grade behind on these skills. So if we want them to reach their full potential at school, we don't want to wait until they're in kindergarten or first grade to start thinking about fostering academic language skills and fostering what we've been talking about as these executive function skills.
So can you give me a couple of, like, maybe role play, a couple of examples of academic talk? Like, what would you say to little Susie or
Okay,
little
so if little Susie's getting ready to go to bed, I could just say, put your toys away, you need to go to bed, right? That's one kind of way I could say, hey, I'm the mom and I told you to go to bed and you're going to bed. I could alternatively kind of slip a lot of, amazingly, it's time to go to bed, but I could be slipping academic talk into the mix there. I could say, oh my gosh, there's so many toys on the floor. What do you think you could use to make it easier to put them all away before you go to bed? Okay, so I've gotten the idea. You're going to bed, but I've also given them a question where they have to reason. That's more academic kinds of language. If the child can't answer, doesn't come up with an idea, then we just tell them what we would think in that context. So we might say, if I had a whole bunch of things I needed to pick up and put away, I might find a box or maybe a basket to put them all in to carry them to where I was going to put them away. So the more the child hears us reason out loud like this, the more they're going to be able to use their language skills in that way. We might also ask, what do you think might happen if you didn't put your toys that are all over the floor away? And they might offer some ideas, and we might expand on those and say, wow, I think somebody could fall over one of them and maybe get hurt. Or maybe they have a dog, and you could say, oh, maybe, Barley is going to chew up your toys while you're sleeping if you don't put them away. So there might be all kinds of opportunities to get the child to think about the world more generally if we put our minds to it. So the kid's putting their toys away, their doll has its leg broken off. And we might just let that pass. We're anxious to get the kid to bed, it's getting late. Or we could extend the conversation we're having and say, oh my goodness, your doll lost one of her legs. How many legs do people usually have? So you're taking it from the specific doll to more general information about people in general. That's the kinds of things that over and over again we're learning in school. Bedtime is even an opportunity for these executive function skills. A lot of kids don't want to go to bed, right? They're going to put up a
at our
fuss.
house, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You've been peeking through our window.
Yeah, exactly. I've been peeking through lots of windows. So the child's going to balk, and then you have this wonderful opportunity to say something like, I know it's really hard to do something, to stop doing things when you're really having fun, but you have to think about how you're going to feel tomorrow if you don't get enough sleep. You'll probably be grumpy and tired. You won't be able to learn as well in school. And then a lot of kids are going to say, I won't be tired, right? That's going to be the comeback. And then the more you follow up, the richer the conversation, the better. You could follow up with, yeah, I think that sometimes too, because I just don't want to stop what I'm doing. So sometimes I have to make myself go to bed even though I don't want to. It's really hard to take good care of ourselves sometimes, right? But then everybody has the point where they just have to play the tough guy parent, right? Kids still, that's your problem.
Right.
And you might just have to say, look, I'm your mom or I'm your dad.
What I say.
And I have to do my best to take care of you. Sleep is really important for all people, for all animals. Everybody has to get enough sleep. So you have to put your toys away right now, and then you're going to bed, right? But look at how much really rich language interaction went on in that scenario of just time to go to bed, as opposed to, Susie, put your toys away and you're going to bed.
Yes.
Right.
They're getting exposed to so much more language. They're using their language to reason, to negotiate,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Yeah, and those are all really important skills, things to be able to do with language in school.
Okay, that's awesome. So if you're just joining us, we are talking to Dr. Ann Van Kleeck, and we're talking about language, early childhood language and literacy. And so if you have any questions or you want to share your experience, our phone number is 214-431-5062.
So, as you were talking, I was thinking about, there's teacher classroom talk that they always say they want us to do with how we instruct our students. I know the concept of Bloom's taxonomy.
Right.
Could you really quickly break that down for our audience? Like, what is that? And because it sounds like everything you were just saying connects to that.
Yeah,
but
it
yeah,
does.
just wanna
And I don't remember the exact order of the pyramid, but the basic thing is remembering. So you have to remember facts. That's not always so much fun. And we also want kids to be able to tell us things they remember. They're going to have to do a lot of that in school, right?
And when you get married too.
Yeah, that's right. Honey, I already told you that. Honey, I already told you that twice.
You have been poking in our window, haven't you?
I certainly have. So, yeah, they have to be able to remember things. And they have to be able to evaluate things. We haven't gotten into book sharing yet, but that's one wonderful opportunity besides getting ready to go to bed and all the other times during the day, that you can be asking them, oh, look, we saw one of them yesterday. Do you remember what that's called? You've just taught them a new word. And so they're remembering, and then they have to be able to apply that information, and they have to be able to evaluate it. So you see another child having a little temper tantrum in the supermarket at the end of the day. The kids just, hit their limit, they're tired, and you could have a little discussion about that, evaluate it, and say, oh, I think he's really tired and he's not happy. He probably didn't, he probably didn't go to bed early enough last night.
Right.
And sometimes I'm really tired at the end of the day. What do you think that little boy could do instead of crying on the floor of the supermarket? You have these opportunities. They're there all the time.
Yeah.
That's evaluating, right? But for a preschooler, it's about evaluating the things that happen in everyday life while you're going about your daily routines.
Yeah.
You get opportunities all the time, both in terms of, they're having trouble controlling their emotions, or they see someone else who is, or you can tell them what you had to do to control your emotions, or you at least tried to. If you get a little upset in the car, you can say, oh, Dad forgot to maybe use his words to calm himself down, and he got mad at that driver who did something dangerous. And so you're modeling, I have to do this too. People have to do this, and this is work, and we're doing it all the time. And the more of that they get, the better.
Yeah.
We
do this
every week. Every week we do this. Okay, let me say this, and I'll let you get back in. So it sounds like what you're saying, you're encouraging his parents to, and this is great across all age levels, is
Absolutely.
Extending conversations beyond just quick answers or quick responses or yes or no type of questions.
The more elaborate the conversation, the better.
And this takes a lot of intentionality because as parents, we're tired or we're busy or we're distracted or whatever. But it sounds like, we're helping them develop those critical thinking skills that they need now, that they'll really need once they start kindergarten, all throughout life, just by being intentional and helping them kind of connect the dots between cause and effect and things like that.
Right. But I think it's really important to cut ourselves some slack too.
Mm-hmm.
Parents are very busy. You guys have 3 kids. I mean, that's really so. You may have many, many, many opportunities during the day, but you're rushed, you're busy, you're tired, you're distracted, whatever. That's probably not the best time, right? It's like, let's do this when it can be enjoyable exchange between me and the child. So we don't want to like put ourselves in a corner and feel guilty if we're not doing this. But there's a lot of times when we're not doing anything else. We're in the car, we're on the bus going somewhere. You're seeing all kinds of things. There's nothing else occupying you, and you just have to sit there anyway. It's a great time to be thinking about engaging a child this way. Mealtime.
I was just going to say that.
And so you mentioned you watch a lot of television before. There's an interesting thing about television and language development. The more the television's on, the more negatively it's going to impact the child's language development.
Oh, no.
And the reason we think this happens is not because television's bad. It's because these interactions with other people right in our environment aren't going on nearly as much. There's been some very interesting research. When the television's on and you can hear it in the background, there's not back and forth conversations going on to nearly the extent. It's those back and forth conversations that are the sweet spot where we're really going to be helping our child. And that doesn't mean we don't all put kids in front of TV or a screen or whatever once in a while to keep them quiet and out of our hair while we're trying to get something else to do. It's a matter of how often. So very direct relationship. The more the TV's on, the more we're going to have a negative impact.
It's an inverse correlation.
Yep, it's an inverse correlation.
I would also assume that also like with technology, devices, electronic devices, laptops, phones, tablets, the more screen is in front of someone, it's going to impact how much people engage with one another.
Absolutely. And so instead of just talking about TV, now more and more the research is focused on all digital media.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, of course, it's a balancing act. Kids need to know how to use that stuff, but, if they're using it too often, the American Pediatrics Association says it's best really very, very limited television below 2 years of age, just a couple of hours a day when they're toddlers and preschoolers. So they're acknowledging, kids are going to have screen time. But, they even say not such a good idea to have a TV in the kid's bedroom.
Yeah.
Because if it's there, they're gonna have it on.
And they're not being watched. Because
exactly.
that was my problem. I had a TV in my bedroom, and you're not going to be in their bedroom 24 hours, so you're just giving them an open window to the world, and to teach them whatever they want. Yeah,
see in that world. Yes.
Yeah. So let's jump into early literacy development. What is that exactly?
So early literacy development, and I actually call it pre-literacy development. So it's all the kinds of things that the child can learn about print, learn about reading, learn about writing, before the child actually learns how to read and write independently themselves. And they can be learning tons of things. They can be learning all different functions of print. Oh, I write things down, or Dad's writing down the things he needs to get at the grocery store. It's helping him remember. So there's a function of print. I can use print to be in touch with people who aren't right here. So I can, text them, or, goodness gracious, even send them a card in the mail. That's a possibility. Remember
or
those?
A letter.
Right. Remember those days.
Yeah.
So I can use, I can watch people around me, mom and dad and other people, using print to learn about things. They're even using it to relax. Gee, Mom's finally reading that book that she's been trying to read
for 4 months.
Yeah. Right. So it can be a relaxing, enjoyable thing. It can be something they see mom and dad have to do to work, right? You're on your computers, you're doing stuff with print, and they're like, oh, when I get big, I'm maybe going to have to be able to do this stuff. So they're learning lots of functions. they can be learning some alphabet letters. They can be learning that words rhyme and getting tuned into the sound component of language, which will help them as they learn to read. They can be doing...
So are you saying like rap is a good thing then for children early?
I
You
think
get that rhythm and rhyme going, right?
Absolutely.
Hey.
Absolutely.
All right. See?
It's National Poetry Month. Did you know
Yeah.
that?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
See, I'm always trying to find a way to incorporate.
When we look at like if we look at like African American kids and other kids' language development in certain ways in terms of academic skills, there's a big gap, But if we look at the casual talk skills, if they're getting into things like rap and everything, their language is like, it's just way better.
Wow.
It's way richer. So,
it's interesting. Well, like for example, they incorporate some schools. Are you familiar with FlowCabulary?
with what?
It's called FlowCabulary.
I'm not.
Okay, FlowCabulary is basically taking academic concepts and turning them into raps. And so
Cool.
it's taking and it goes down always like I think it's always kindergarten. I'm sorry, I'm all up on your hand
No, I
here.
was
Okay,
I was
I'm holding
looking
my
at
wife's hand.
something else.
Yes.
Love you.
But yeah, so they basically take the concepts and turn them into rap with a catchy beat. Yeah, and what they do is they're conveying the same academic concepts, but in a way that students can catch it. And so it has rhythm and rhyme to it, but you're still learning the same concept versus just lecturing it to them.
Right. And Danita
is
and I
wonderful.
were talking about this before the show started. It has to be engaging. So I have this preschool read aloud program I've been developing. I created and have been developing for a few years. That's being used in some DISD classrooms, and we've used it in some Trinity Basin preparatory classrooms. And the whole thing is you can be totally boring and trying to foster language skills and you're not going to get anywhere. You have to be engaging. And when you were talking, I was thinking about, I just got to see Hamilton in New York in January. And
We're jealous.
Yeah, we
oh
are.
my gosh.
We are hating on you right now. Yes.
It was so freaking good. But
Thanks.
oh my gosh,
Thank you.
did I learn so much?
I bet.
And then that got me so interested.
Right.
I read the big fat, several hundred pages, probably over 1,000-page book that the musical was based on. So, oh my
Right.
gosh. So yeah, that was so engaging.
That's
so
what pulled
engaging.
you in.
It pulled me in. Yeah.
Man.
So yeah, we've got to be. So even if we're going to read books to preschoolers, we have to remember that. Don't feel forced. If you're too tired, you're too grumpy, you're too stressed, skip it. That's not helping anybody. It's got to be an unstressful, engaging, fun activity where you can be focusing 100% of your attention on the kid, and that'll help them love books, because kids love nothing more than attention, and they're getting your undivided attention.
Right.
That'll make books really special.
Yeah. So it sounds like I know it's real easy, with both of us being entrepreneurs, or people are just busy working to, to shut off the work, to be intentional about engaging our children, or if we're tired, finding opportunities to plan it. So I think I think the takeaway for us is, we need to plan that time with our children. It just it happens and it doesn't happen, but being more intentional. I think this is for kids at any age, when our kids are 6, our youngest is 6 now, but I think this is just a lot of good stuff just for any parent, whether they're pre-K or not, just how to better engage and be more thoughtful about how we interact with our children.
And I think there's way more opportunities than you think there are. So if you're thinking about the preschooler, I gave the whole scenario with it's time to go to bed. Well, there's bath time. There's helping the kid get dressed, or if they're even younger, dressing the kid. There's meal time. There's meal preparation time. Maybe that's a time if you can manage it on Tuesday. You might not be able to on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but engage the kid in that. Don't have them go watch TV or be on their screen, but talking about what you're doing and talking about how things transform when they're cooked or what, I
Right.
mean, there's all kinds of science and math and everything else going on there
Yeah.
that you're doing it anyway. So
Right.
you have this opportunity, and they go on all day long at times when you don't necessarily have to make a special time,
Right.
right?
Yeah, just kind of incorporating it into your life.
And the more you can do that, I think the more you will
Yeah.
do that, that you will use language in these ways with kids.
And I think you mentioned drive time. That is the prime time. I thought we had a phone call.
We have
Okay.
a call.
We actually have a caller. So let me pause my thought here. Hi, you're on the air with School Dazed.
Hi.
Hi,
it's
what's your name,
Missy.
caller, and where are you coming from? Where are you calling
Hey,
from?
it's Missy.
Oh, hi, Missy. This is my sister-in-law.
Oh, okay.
This is my sister. Hi, Missy. Hi,
Missy.
sister.
What's your
Hi, my
question?
brother. I really like the stuff that you're talking about. I remember growing up listening to Schoolhouse Rock.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Schoolhouse Rock.
Do you know Schoolhouse
That's
Rock?
how I learned. That was how I learned my multiplications, because I had problems with the 8 times tables, and I remember listening to that. Figure 8 is double 4. Figure 4 is half of 8.
My sister loves to sing. Always trying to find a way to sing.
That's how I learned my multiplications, and then I learned the conjunction, junction.
That's what's your function?
What's your function?
Yeah.
Or a bill,
What's
the one
your
about a bill.
function? Yeah,
So,
yeah,
Missy,
that's exactly.
Missy, I'm afraid I'm
That's-
way too old to know that. Sorry.
That's right in our wheelhouse. And I got to tell you.
That was late 70s, early 80s. That was when that was really, really
Yeah,
big.
Yeah,
I was
definitely
learning
through the 80s.
multiplication tables in
Okay.
the 1950s. So.
Oh, well, yeah. You should
mine was
Google
like
it.
The early
Yeah.
70s, and I remember when Sesame Street came out. That's how
Yeah.
I learned a lot
That-
of
that
stuff.
It
was
came
out-
out the year I was born, actually.
It came out after I was born, too. That came
I was-
out in 1965.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
The use of rhyme and music is so amazing in learning things. I remember, I was taught the 50 states in alphabetical order, which I still know.
Wow.
Back in, I think, maybe
Wow.
first grade. Yeah, I still know that. And what are some of the other things? Oh, there was an episode of Cheers where they were trying to teach Coach something. Coach was one of the employees at the bar, and he had a test he had to take. So I now remember that Albania borders on the Adriatic. Its land is mostly mountainous, and its chief export is chrome. At least it was in the 80s when this came out.
Amazing.
Isn't that
Man.
amazing? This
That's
was
amazing. But
20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and we can we can even pull that back into pre-literacy skills, because how do kids learn the alphabet? Well, we teach them a song.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
they already
exactly.
know the tune to that song. That's the tune for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
Yeah.
So we stick these totally meaningless A, B, C, D. I mean, those don't mean anything all by themselves.
Right.
But it gives them that memory anchor to kind of go back to Bloom's taxonomy
Right,
a little bit,
right.
right? They have to remember those. And so we start with song. I guess that's not universal, because I've had
Really?
graduate students from other cultures, other countries say, I didn't learn an alphabet song. So
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, they're missing out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, Missy,
I
thank
remember growing up that David, Mom used to be like, if you can learn this music, you can learn this, you can learn these,
Right.
your homework.
tables or whatever.
I
Well,
would,
that's true.
I would have to put it to song, because that was how I remembered things, was putting it to music.
Yeah.
Right.
Still,
That's awesome.
Still do to this day.
Yes, she's been singing ever since.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Missy, we're so glad you're listening. Thank you so much for calling. We only have a couple more minutes and about
Okay.
25 more questions we want to ask her. So
Okay.
we're going to have to, but thank you
Okay.
for calling.
Thank you.
Thanks, Missy. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, brother. Bye, sis.
Bye.
Oh, how
my
cute.
sister. My sister.
Oh my gosh! So we're just really scratching the surface of this, but we do want to ask you a couple more questions. Actually, how about you tell us some of the things that you want our parents to know about the importance of reading aloud and early pre-K literacy, because we really only have a couple
Okay.
more minutes. And what's
Sure.
Bring it
the
on
biggest
home
thing
for
we
us.
need
Yeah.
to know?
Bring
So-
it. Land the plane.
Okay, so I think, like a lot of things, we maybe get the message out there too strongly in terms of read to your baby when you're pregnant, read to your newborn, and so on and so forth. Well, reading to your fetus when you're pregnant per se is not really important. When they're about 18 weeks gestational age, they start to be able to hear, can respond to sound about 25 weeks. Hearing voices is important, but you don't have to be reading.
Yeah.
They're actually starting to learn some things about the language in utero, believe it or not. Reading to a newborn, if it makes you feel like a good dad or a good mom, that's great, but it's not really going to help the child.
Okay.
What's going to help the child is interacting with them and talking with them.
Yeah.
Even though they're not talking yet, we've got tons of research. They are learning so much about language during that first year of life before they actually ever learn how to talk themselves. So we want to talk to our babies, and we want to talk a lot. And that can be, some cultures don't do that. That might seem really strange. It's like, a baby doesn't even talk yet. Why would I talk with that baby? Well, maybe because it's actually going to build this foundation that's going to be important.
Yeah.
Not only having interactions then, but as they get to school age and, just cascades through their whole life. But once children are 6 months or so, they can start to pay attention to a book, and they'll enjoy that one-on-one attention that you're giving them. So they'll bring the book to you.
Right.
And they'll want the same book read over and over and over again, so you'll know which books are the best books to read to them. For a baby, it'll be really simple books with single, bright-colored items of, one thing per page. As they're toddlers, they can listen to simple stories and follow them just fine, especially because they have the pictures in the book to help them understand. When they're preschoolers, I've even seen parents read chapter books that take several days or several weeks to finish to a preschooler. So don't limit yourself. And one of the really wonderful things about books is when we're talking everyday casual talk, with people, we don't use big vocabulary. And if we do, they'll probably say, I'm not one of your students, you can come down off it. You didn't have to use that big word with me.
My wife does that one with me all the time, by the way. Anyway, I didn't know what curmudgeon meant until I met my wife, so I call those the SAT words. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Let's not digress.
But so you don't get exposed to the SAT words or even the second grade words for the academic words in everyday casual talk. But you do in reading. So even books written at a preschool level have much more advanced vocabulary in them than children are going to hear. So reading those books, the more often you read them, the more benefit to the child's vocabulary development and their general language development. They come to be able to tell the story themselves. That's a real important language skill, to be able to tell stories in a logical sequence and things like that. They're learning the vocabulary. You can talk about what the vocabulary means. You can use the vocabulary again later in the day. Oh, we saw that in your book. Oh, yeah, there's that word again, and just get all excited. So as kids are, after 6 months, well, a 6-month-old can't pay attention to a book for longer than a minute or two. So that's not going to be a very long interaction. But a preschooler would love if you would read to them for 20 minutes, a half hour, and then if it's bedtime, an hour or 2 hours. I'm kidding, but I'm not really.
They would love that.
Yeah. So, that's a wonderful, wonderful activity. But the reason I said I think it's kind of been overblown is it makes parents think they can only do that kind of stuff when they're reading to their kids. And I'm really trying to help parents understand you have opportunities all day long for the child to and teach them fancy words. Oh, we're going to dine tonight instead of eat. Or, oh, look at that cute infant. Infant, Mommy, what's that mean? Oh, that's a fancy word for baby, right? We can just be doing it. And kids love, if you tell them that their skin is epidermis, a 4-year-old will love it.
Yes.
They're just like, huh. and they'll learn the big long word, and they'll tell people about it, and they'll be excited about it. They're sponges. I've had preschoolers teach me words. I had
Wow.
a 2-year-old, when I was reading a book to them, correct me when I called it a bug, and he said, "Yes, but it's a special kind of bug. It's an aphid." And
Oh.
I had no idea what an aphid was. I had to go look it up.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, so don't underestimate the vocabulary. They're sponges. You know, there's that 30 million word gap that people talk about, and it refers to research in which we've seen that children whose parents have high education levels just talk to them a lot more.
Yeah.
And you can see with the little go to bed episode how much more they might be talking, right? And so by 3 years of age, they're hearing 30 million more words than their
low-income
than
counterparts.
low-income children are. And it's already there's already a huge difference in kids' vocabularies by 3 years of age. And if we follow those 3-year-olds with the bigger vocabularies, it makes a huge difference to their academic success for years to come. But it isn't just about the number of words. It's not, tell the kid, put that away, stop that. Don't hit your brother. It's those big engaged
The
conversation
intentionality.
about why we're doing this and how we feel about it and how it can be difficult, but how we have to do it anyway, even though, it's not that much fun, or on and on and on. There's just tremendous opportunities for that outside of the book sharing context. But book sharing's like the mother lode of opportunities. So someday I'll come back and tell you more
You
about
have to come back.
You are coming back.
the
Yeah.
TABI program. So the TABI program is TAB to the fourth. That means there's 4 B's to I, TABI, and it stands
That
for
exponents. Yes.
Talking About Books Builds Big Brains Intervention. And I've taken everything I've learned in my career and I've built it into, right now it's for teachers to use with the classroom, to really foster those academic language skills, just real high doses of them. The books are read 6 or 8 times, and it's just been phenomenal. I'm seeing we're still crunching data, but I'm seeing really good results, even with bilingual kids who've been exposed to this program. So, so that's really exciting, but it's just one context. It's just the book sharing.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. We are absolutely going to have you come back. This was such great information. Thank you so much, Dr. Van Kleeck.
You are so welcome. It was a pleasure.
Yes, and if you guys loved today's show, you're really going to love next week also. Next week, we have veteran teacher Kendra Allen. She'll join us to give us tips on fostering a love of reading in a tech-driven society.
I can't wait to hear about that.
I know. With
Me
so
either.
much, right, you'll be listening. So with so much competition from Fortnite and cute cat videos and Snapchat, kids are spending less time reading. It's just a reality. So come back next week to get tips to inspire your kids and maybe even yourself to read more. So as always, head to our website, schooldazedshow.com, for more information. And remember, you don't ever have to miss a show. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, and Stitcher. And if you'd like to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, we're at Noggin, Noggin Foundation. And we always want to end our show by saying that David and I are parenting by grace. We depend on God to give us the wisdom and strength we need to raise our kids into flourishing adults. And if you want to know more about that, feel free to email us at info@schooldazeshow.com. Have a great week.